This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
That ruler is at 11 inches.
Let's push pause.
It is public health malpractice to continue adding fluoride to water.
Mathematically, it was clear from Election Day on that the election was over.
The biblical, historical, and astronomical look into the events leading to Christ's birth.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. It is a wild ride home for many of us today.
The roads are terrible. Well, they claim we were supposed to get 12 inches up this way.
I got stuck in a ditch a couple times, but there were other cars that were stuck sliding.
Radar shows snow is still falling in Binghamton, Scranton, Mansfield, and Gailton. Jim Thorpe and Stroudsburg still under a winter storm warning in Pennsylvania until 7 tonight. But for the rest of us, the warnings have expired. The first major storm of the season just about over.
It kind of snuck up on everybody.
Storm totals are still coming in, but there was 16 inches logged in Franklin, New York, and nearly a foot in Mount Cobb in Lackawanna County. This is a reporter with WNEP in the Poconos.
I sunk right into the ground. That ruler is at 11 inches here where we're standing.
Pennsylvania and New York are the top two states in the country right now, save Washington, for power outages. 60,000 are in the dark in New York, 106,000 in the Keystone State. The number's starting to drop as line crews begin their work post-storm. The silver lining, the heavy wet snow has helped dent a months-long drought in the Northeast. Donald Trump's hush money sentencing in New York City is being delayed indefinitely. Judge Juan Merchan granted a stay.
I think it makes all the sense in the world for the judge to say, let's push pause.
Legal analysts say it was a hard decision.
The judge is clearly wrestling with a very complicated issue. Judges obviously are loath to throw out jury convictions. You know, they put in all the time and effort supervising the trial. They're not just inclined to throw these things out. Obviously, we're in unique circumstances here. We've never had this situation before.
Trump's attorneys say waiting 4 years to sentence someone is criminal in itself. We've learned Donald Trump will nominate a woman named Pam Bondi to be Attorney General of the United States.
Bondi is a former two-term Florida State Attorney General and a staunch Trump ally who's been signaling the administration's intentions for over a year.
When Republicans take back the White House, and we will, the Department of Justice, the prosecutors will be prosecuted, the bad ones. The investigators will be investigated.
Florida's Surgeon General just drew a line in the sand on fluoride in city drinking water.
We are issuing guidance to every community, every municipality, every county in Florida to stop adding fluoride to their community water system.
Dr. Joseph Ledipo is the highest-ranking state official in the U.S. to make such a bold statement. He says there are too many long-term studies that show it impacts intelligence in kids and causes problems with decision-making.
It is public health malpractice with the information that we have now to continue adding fluoride to water systems in Florida.
98% of Europe and all of China has banned fluoride, saying the science is too strong against its use. In Texas, the State Board of Education has voted to allow the state's public elementary schools to teach a Bible-based curriculum. It features Bible stories like the Sermon on the Mount and the Good Samaritan. Board member Marissa Perez-Diaz.
There are ways to separate the moral of the lesson from religious teachings. And so for that reason, I still stand against.
CBS reporter Jason Allen.
There are some parents who are very supportive of this. They have looked at this curriculum and they see more than the Bible lessons in it. They see this as a return to more of a classic style of education, a mix of literature and art and math and history.
A group of Christian schools in central Pennsylvania are suing the public schools there, saying they should be allowed to take part in taxpayer-funded extracurricular activities like sports, art clubs, and tutoring. Attorney Thomas Breath.
So in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, homeschool students and charter school students are permitted to participate in activities their public school district of residence.
Brett tells Family Life News that First Amendment and 14th Amendment rights are involved.
And as taxpayers and residents of these public schools, they most certainly should have the ability to take advantage of those opportunities and not be discriminated against just because they're seeking their education in a religious context.
The case will likely be decided in the spring. A judge has ruled 17 test cases can move forward in the Buffalo Diocese bankruptcy case, allowing the litigation in state court to determine liability and damages.
And what perhaps is the biggest victory to date for survivors of sexual abuse in the Buffalo Catholic Diocese.
The decision could have the potential to speed up a final resolution on cash paid out to survivors. This has dragged on in bankruptcy court in Buffalo for more than 4 years. And after a 4,000-mile journey from Alaska, a huge spruce tree has made it to the nation's capital, where it will become the Capitol Christmas tree. The architect at the Capitol's Jim Kaufman.
Lighting the Capitol Christmas tree has been a holiday tradition since 1964, and it's one that we're always happy to be a part of.
The 80-foot-tall tree is nicknamed Spruce Wayne. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, a sit-down with our Capitol Connection crew as we look at the ins and outs of Harrisburg and Albany. But weather first, after this.
Well, we'll call it gradually improving weather, but it's still going to be rather cloudy, at times dampish. Be a couple of showers around, a little drizzle, maybe a few wet flakes as well. Watch for some slippery spots to reform on untreated surfaces, below 33 to 42. Saturday, rather cloudy, couple of showers, high temps 40s to near 50. Sunday, variable clouds, chance for a shower, a little sun could poke through. High temperatures Sunday in the 40s.
Thank you, Kevin. Checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. This week's Capitol Connection begins with Michael Gear's commentary on the twists of Pennsylvania's Senate race. Now that incumbent Bob Casey Jr. has conceded his loss, attention turns to the way Philadelphia area election officials were counting and recounting votes. Let's listen in.
It's amazing that they just thumb their nose at the rule of law, but we've seen that as a pattern we're seeing more and more in government. I mean, the Biden administration has thumbed its nose at the U.S. Supreme Court related to the college loan forgiveness program. Supreme Court said it's unconstitutional. The Biden administration said, well, we don't care, we're going ahead anyway. So this pattern of disobeying the law is something that needs to be challenged. Thankfully, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did the right thing in pushing back again against these county commissioners.
And Governor Shapiro finally came out and said, knock it off. Many say, where were you last week saying that? You know, he may be a little late to the party there. Jason, there was a big story recently, I think last week. The clean slate law took effect. I believe it was on Saturday. This is a big deal in the Empire State. This is going to seal the records for misdemeanor offenses and for felonies. Is this a step in the right direction for the state of New York?
I think their concern here is who's going to have access to those records. There are a lot of situations in which, as an employer, as a landlord, as whomever, I'd like to know if someone has a criminal background before I go to hire that person or have them work with my children or whatever. So I do have some concerns about it. Police would still have access to those records, but the average person on the street would not. Can there be some reform in criminal justice? Absolutely. I mean, we want people to have second chances. We want them to be able to get jobs and do things. But I just think that there ought to be opportunities for people to know who they're dealing with as well. And to put the burden now on the employer that he kind of ask those questions, that's troublesome to me.
Yeah, could this backfire? I mean, we've seen cases where people, we didn't know they had criminal records until they, went on a murder spree or something. I mean, murderers, sex offenders, their records are permanently sealed. But even some of these lesser offenses, some of these other felonies, do you think this may backfire in the state of New York here in an effort to rehabilitate? Maybe we've endangered public safety a little bit?
I think we could. I think this is one of the lesser areas of the recent criminal justice reform, so-called, that the Albany super Democratic majorities have engaged in. But show me one in recent years that has been successful. They've all backfired. Yeah. So I think there's a reason to have pause whenever you see the words criminal justice reform coming out of our state capitol.
Gotcha. Been there, done that. Yeah, it didn't work so well before. Michael, the 2024 legislative session is over with. What were some of the big wins from your perspective that you were able to play a hand in this year?
Well, interestingly, because Pennsylvania has divided government, we have a Democrat House, a Republican Senate, Senate and a Democrat governor. It's been sort of a stalemate in many respects, but nevertheless, the progressives in the state house pushed some very bad legislation that we were happy to defeat. So in some degree, it's been a defensive battle. I guess I'd point to a couple of things. One, the House Democrats introduced about 40 bills to expand abortion one way or another. Those have been defeated or pushed back or just held off. And then a big one is the sexual orientation and gender identity statewide law proposal. That's something we've been fighting since the mid-90s and again defeated it this time around. We're the only state in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic region that does not have one of these statewide sexual orientation gender identity laws, and that means we're protecting religious freedom and the rights of ministries and others to do the right thing.
Yeah. Jason, you're always on defense. You don't even know what offense is in New York. You just get beating that one back and that one back. But if you would kind of reflect back, I know you've not been in session for several months, but think back to some of the big legislative wins in 2024.
I think some of the wins we've had, you alluded to it, are mostly put out fires, and I'll get to that in a minute, but let me start with some positive ones. We know that we live in a state that is very pro-abortion. So the wins that we can have are things such as we're helping women that are pregnant to be able to get health insurance. There's going to be now help for women that are looking to get prenatal vitamins, and so that's going to help out. That's a positive pro-life movement that we can have in even a deep blue state. That being said, we've put out some fires too. There was an effort this year for assisted suicide. It was like almost the 10th year in a row. We've also been able to keep out so-called anti-bullying curriculum, but really it's about affirmation of the LGBTQ agenda from going into private faith-based schools across the state. So those are some significant victories.
Hear more from Albany Update commenter Jason McGuire and Harrisburg-based watchdog Michael Gear every Friday during our noon report and also on our Capital Connection podcast anytime from familylife.org. Time next for tonight's market report brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Wall Street is closing higher to end a positive week. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 426 points to 44,296. The S&P 500 rose 20 points to 5969. The Nasdaq gained 31 points to 1903. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
When you rely solely on your own power to provide, you'll always stress about having enough. I am Rob West with another Faith and Finance Minute. Peace comes from knowing that God owns everything, and He's your true provider, not just of wealth, but even your ability to earn it. Deuteronomy 8:18 reads, "You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you power to get wealth." Of course, you have to do your part. Proverbs 14:23 says, "In all toil there is profit, but mere talk tends only to poverty." So you must always be grateful for your job and the ability to work, because God is your true employer. Colossians 3:23 tells us, "Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men." We can help you learn to manage your money according to biblical principles when you download the free FaithFi app. You'll find it on our website at faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, ever wonder what was going on in the sky when Jesus was born? Well, there's something that you might want to check out in New York. We've got that story next after weather.
The storm system that produced more than a foot of snow across some of the highest elevations of northeast Pennsylvania and east south central New York is moving away, but only slowly. Our weather, we'll call it gradually improving, but gradually the operative word here. We're not going back to warm, sunny, dry weather anytime soon. Tonight, cloudy skies, a few scattered showers, a little bit of drizzle, still a few flakes mixed in places. Low temps 30s, rather cloudy tomorrow. A couple of showers around, the high temps in the 40s to near 50. Sunday, clouds, a shower, and a little bit of sun could poke through. High temperatures Sunday in the 40s.
Thanks, Kevin. Finally, at 5, an astronomical event highlighting the first Christmas is happening tomorrow in Western New York. Family Life's Dee Haley explains.
The Astronomy of Christmas, focusing on astronomy during the period of the first century, including what was the Star of Bethlehem, will be presented in Hamburg this weekend. The program is described as a biblical, historical, and astronomical look into the events leading to Christ's birth. Using technology and amateur astronomer Michael Kistner of Starfish Ministries of Western New York will share his view of the skies as they appeared 20 centuries ago. The presentation takes place tomorrow at 1 p.m. at the Hamburg Library at 102 Buffalo Avenue. Presentations are also scheduled for December 4th and December 14th in Amherst. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
And that's the world that we live in for Friday, the 22nd of November. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.